Hello and welcome to Media Academy Online's Film Diet podcast. I'm Dana.
And I'm Brandon.
And these next few podcasts, we're going to be talking about biopics.
Biopics, or biopics.
However you want to say it.
Cool.
This is sort of almost like a quiet genre that kind of just secretly grows in popularity over time, and they just sort of throw ones out here or there.
It's like a continuous sort of cycle where like every few years you get one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really ebb and flow as much, does it, this genre?
No, it's just pretty steady, a few ones that come out there. But they're interesting films in that they sort of enlighten us to a person's life or an event that went on in history or that kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting to watch it and understand that what we're watching, more often than not, is something that actually happened.
Whether they're based on a true story and how much they embellish and how much they exclude from the...
And that's right. It is Hollywood, and for the sake of a story, they will happily go and change plots in the story and the way things happen. And it's still an art form, and they're always going to be biased towards a point of view in many cases.
Like, particularly, like, you think of these movies, they're usually, like, they're very human stories because they kind of want to win over the audience. So they're always very center point is always very human, and relatable. Well, for the most part, even for these musician movies, they've always got that strong human element where we just latch onto the drama, and that sort of wins you over, and
it's kind of like a veil where they remove the veil. The music we've all sort of grown up with or heard as a child or whatever it might be. Something we know the music of, but we might not necessarily know the people behind the music. And so that's the reason why it's interesting for us to watch them, is because we do get to see that bigger picture of the story we know. And for Hollywood, from their point of view, or the filmmakers, whoever it might be, from their point of view, it is almost a sure thing because there's already an audience there.
Yeah.
There's already an understanding of the characters and the music that might be involved. And so it's an easy sell from that point of view.
Yeah, I guess that's why they keep coming back, and they always have been a steady, sort of a win, basically, haven't they? When they release the movie on the musician, the down on his luck musician, or the one that goes through the drama and then succeeds at the end or through the film, It's a win. It's always a winner, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's been a few that sort of fell short, like from memory, the Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah, and that was directed by Danny Boyle as well. There was two Steve Jobs movies that came out.
I guess the second one was in reaction to the first one being not very...
Ashton Kutcher playing.
Yeah.
Coochie Coo. I couldn't see him as Steve
No,
Jobs.
I struggled to feel the emotion in him. He tried, but...
He's not an actor, though.
No.
Let's face it.
Let's
get punked.
Let's just put in some jokes here or whatever and just act like an idiot.
But I think they went the more traditional route for an easy sell. Well, they went for that sort of for the Ashton Kutcher one. And then the Danny Boyle one with Michael Fassbender was a lot more... It was done in like 3 parts, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was completely the opposite side where it's very artsy and focused on very specific parts of the life.
A lot harder to get engaged with.
Yeah, like I read the book about Steve Jobs when he passed, and that was... So I knew his story quite well, and there was a lot of traits and elements which I think could have been included in the movies, which weren't. That comes back down to the filmmakers having to make decisions about the story to make it a film in itself. What do you keep and what don't you, and what do you change in order to make it a fit into a 3-act film
structure? It's a funny one because like I found the Ashton Kutcher one easy to watch, but I enjoyed the Danny Boyle one on a more technical level and all obviously in acting and all that. It's just I watched it for that and loved it for all that, but overall it's very forgettable.
Yeah,
I think I think in that one they focused on the wrong things. Like I see what they were going for in the 3 parts and the 3 pivotal moments in his sort of Apple career or whatever. But I just found I just could not connect with it.
If I was to make that film, you're talking about a guy that's changed an industry and changed
The world.
The world in huge ways, and none of them focused on that.
Yeah.
They should have tried to focus on the change he's made in life and try and look at it through his eyes,
Yeah.
what it is like to make those changes in society and the legacy he leaves behind. Also focus on those elements instead of just trying to focus on personality traits or just small struggles within his life. But I think they needed a bigger picture.
Yeah,
the
I think they
films.
really did cop out like on going all out with it. And I don't know if maybe it was the too soon thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do that in
Yeah,
another 10 years
that's
and
it.
more of a look back on Steve Jobs and how he changed the world. But I think I think when those movies even came out, it sort of did feel a bit too soon.
It was too soon. Pretty much as soon as he died, they announced they were
Jumped on
going to make it. Yeah.
Way too soon. And I'd like to see Pixar do something. You know, maybe they
Yeah.
could do something.
That'd be very interesting, actually.
I mean,
Right,
that'll
yeah.
change up the Pixar landscape, you know, get away from the Disney crap
Yeah.
and make something that's true to Pixar. That would be fucking cool.
Yeah. So let's move on to music-based one.
So which ones have you seen?
Probably the most recent one was Rocketman,
Which I haven't seen.
which is, I mean, it's a biopic, but it felt very much like a musical where they would just jump into song and dance. And the music wasn't really used as a performance piece. Like when the character is performing to people, that's when we hear the music. We kind of hear the music when he's doing his day-to-day life, whatever it might be. So it is like a break into song and dance kind of moment. And there was a few scenes, a few performances where he kind of sings, but they don't focus on him actually performing in front of a stage as much. It's more about them using his songs as part of the story structure in the film.
Yeah, it's like a narrative device.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So it's a different way of doing it. I know, speaking to people I know who've also seen it, was a turn off for them. They're not really fans of musical, and I kind of, for me, it was fine. Like, I can accept a musical as a musical.
Yeah.
And using it in that format. It's nice to see them trying different techniques, though.
I was going to say, you know, like, because we've just had Queen, and that is that's the very traditional route.
That's right.
So I can see why they probably opted to go another direction if they had known about the Queen direction at the time. But yeah, I mean, I'd struggle with that a bit more, I think, because I like watching the more traditional biopic, you know, and seeing the perform as if you're watching them, you know, for real. And I like to see that, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's Elton John. He's not dead yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to look at the other recent one, Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocketman together, the stronger one's probably Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, they both start with deep subjects, but I guess the way that they went about telling the story with Bohemian Rhapsody and focused on the narrative as a narrative rather than using music as like the driving force, it kind of felt a bit more human, a bit more real. And they would have scenes in Rocketman where they'd have like a montage scene, but they would perform it in like a dance number.
Yeah.
And they kind of give you the illusion or the suggestion of what's happening through that montage, but a lot of people will miss it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I would be able to follow and sort of like take it all in. You know, like it just I think it would. A lot of it would go over my head.
Yeah, which like Bohemian Rhapsody, you know, the story is driven by the story and not by the music or trying to use artistic numbers to try and expand the story. They just tell you it as it is. The music is used where need be on stage, you know, when they're performing, and it's probably a lot easier for most people to follow. But I think having the separation also made it a stronger film.
Bohemian Rhapsody, stronger film, you think?
Yeah.
What about acting wise? Do you think Taron Egerton is it? How do you think he went?
I think he did really well. I think in both films they had strong characters. They both performed really well. They kept to the essence of their respective performers, but they were able to put enough differences in those characters to make them, you know, still make it their own, which was good to see.
And directing wise, because I know Rocketman was directed by Dexter Fletcher, I think, and he was an actor. He was in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a very distinct direction to it. Again, it's more of that abstract kind of storytelling elements to it. Throughout the film, it's narrated through like an AA meeting kind of style, where he finds that he's You know,
He's got problems.
he's addicted to pretty much anything you can be addicted to. He's addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever else there is to get addicted to. He is the usual get famous too young and you
suffer
don't
the consequences.
Yeah.
So was there any other things you can think of in Rocketman that stood out? Like, was there anything in that film that jumped out and you said, this is an exciting thing within a biopic movie because there's been so many of them? Is there anything in it that has jumped out?
I think the thing that, as I said before, that sets it apart is the different... them experimenting with different forms of storytelling, which they've kind of been done with other films in more of like other genres, not necessarily like real stories
or something.
Yeah, but that a completely new story where these are trying to follow the life of someone.
Yeah.
Speaking to people who know more about his life than I do, they reckon they didn't go far enough with the realism and the what actually happened in his life.
Seems to be... That's a common thing with these movies.
Yeah.
And this is the problem I have with them.
I'm pretty sure Elton John was one of the producers, so I'm pretty sure he would have had control over what gets said and what doesn't. I mean, having said that, I mean, it does get pretty bad, you know, where he tries to commit suicide and all kinds of stuff, and it gets pretty dark. And it felt maybe the second act, they kind of just were dwelling on all the bad stuff, but the story itself wasn't really progressing as much as it could be. It was just more of a, we're going to dwell on the bad, depressive kind of elements of it. And I got to a stage sort of where I'm like, all right, let's pick this up again. And eventually they did start picking up again, but there was a bit of a lull in the film where it was very much, let's just focus on all the depressive parts on life. And
yeah, I wasn't rushing out to see it. I like a lot of Elton John songs and stuff, like, you know.
And so you have seen Bohemian Rhapsody, however? So...
Yeah, I did see that because, you know, growing up, my parents were big Queen fans, or my mum was, and my partner is a big Queen fan.
To switch it up, it'll be good if we can get a quick rundown of your thoughts on Bohemian Rhapsody before we move on.
Yeah, I love Rami Malek. I thought he was great in it. I could just watch him, you know, I was just like wanting to watch him and how he performed and acted in it and all that. I just wanted to see him being Freddie. Everything else to me was not as interesting. I mean, I just like seeing the band antics and the behind the scenes of the band not getting on and getting on and all that. But I felt the direction suffered because I think they changed directors through making it, and I noticed that. And the editing wasn't... They won an Academy Award for editing, but I found it a bit jarring in places. Overall, the film's good, but I've seen much better.
Yeah, I think in terms of from the Academy Award point of view, it's a case where we're kind of seeing a lot with Academy Awards now, where the wins for Academy Awards is the film being about what it's about, being about Queen, and
becomes like a popular contest in a way. Like
it is. Yeah. Usually the films that win any various award might not necessarily, well, I mean, this is all subjective, but from my point of view, aren't always necessarily the better ones, but they're either the more popular ones, or the ones are more artsy or try different things sometimes, but not always.
Like, I found it won for both the music categories. Like, I think it was whatever it was now, I can't even remember, but it was like best sound editing and whatever, mixing, and it was just like so like weird. Like, I think they just said, oh well, that's a movie about musicians and we'll just give them those awards.
Yeah,
you know. And it just felt like that, and it just I know I watched much better films and much better sound and like Suspiria or whatever it was, you know, Hereditary. I don't know. I can only think of horror movies at the moment. But
did you see First Man?
I started watching it and I was loving it, and I've got to finish watching that.
One of the standouts of that is the sound is amazing throughout.
Would be, yeah.
Especially towards the end there when it all builds right up.
And this is what pisses me off about to give that film Bohemian Rhapsody both the music category awards. It just seems like such a cop-out to me. Like, it's just like, nah, it's not right. But we all know the Academy Awards is bullshit anyway, so it doesn't matter.
It's all subjective, so we have to leave that open.
yeah, true. All right, that was my rundown.
So a film that I haven't seen though, Ray.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx, Ray. This is one that, I saw this when it came out on DVD. My mum, I think, had it, and they were watching it, and wow, yeah, that hit me hard, that one. Because it's just an amazing story about an amazing artist, a blind musician. Yeah. And I knew nothing about him in his life, knew his music, and that's one that is right up there for me. And this is the thing. That one really hit it hard, you know, hit it right.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of ones since or whatever, you know, I'm always comparing it to this one because it was really good.
Is it a cradle to death kind of story, or is it focusing on certain elements of his life, or?
Pretty much the whole thing.
Yeah.
To be honest, I got to rewatch it again.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it focused heavily on what kind of made him the man he was. Not so much the latter parts of his days from my memory, but it was more about his struggles.
Yeah.
And, you know, being a black man, being blind, you know, all these obstacles he had to face. And then once he got famous, dealing with all the stuff that came with that. And, in drugs and stuff like that, you know, heroin and all that. So it's really dark and confronting aspects to the film. And it doesn't shy away from a lot. I'm sure there's, you know, a lot of stuff they edit out. Oh, they exclude from Talon, which is fine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's just a really nice, solid movie.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whereas Bohemian Rhapsody was jagged.
And what would you say some of the positive takeaways?
Positive takeaways was telling the story of a blind artist, basically, or a blind man, and the beauty he brought to the world through his music.
Yeah.
And that alone is powerful. So powerful. Yeah, and it's just amazing, like, the era it's set in as well. I think they did that really well. And you kind of, sort of, you just, as soon as the movie begins, I just feel like you just sort of, you're just thrown into that era and you're just there the whole time. And it's just believable, and it's the acting of Jamie Foxx, he won for that as well, Best Actor, and he definitely deserved it. And, you know, it makes me scratch my head sometimes, because when I see other Jamie Foxx movies, I'm like, he's not that good. But then I remember that, and I'm like, he's brilliant in that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I see something like, I don't know, whatever it is. He's a good actor when he wants to be, and then he does shit movies. But then that happens to a lot of them, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Django, but yeah, even that, he's like, it's just a funny, especially in the Spider-Man movies, a fucking, you know. But I mean, he's brilliant in it, and it's just, you got to see it. I highly recommend it. I'll give that, if not 10 out of 10, I'd probably give it a 9.
So is that maybe one of the better music-based biopics that you...
Yeah.
So to round out our music genre biopics, Walk the Line, one we both have seen.
Yay.
Which is more of like a romance. They throw some romance in there as well.
Yeah. And I think the casting in that was incredible. Like Joaquin or Jacqueline. I don't know how to say his name.
Joaquin.
Is it Joaquin?
Yeah.
It is Joaquin. Because I've heard people say it. I've heard other people say Joaquin. I think it is Joaquin.
I'm pretty sure. That's all I know of.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it is anyway. So let's stick with that.
Yeah. Joaquin.
If we're wrong, correct us. But I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah.
And he does some really good works. Some films that he jumps right in his projects. It's great.
Every film he does, I'll give it the time of day. Like if not, he's probably in my top 5 actors.
Yeah,
by far, you know. And Ray and Walk the Line were like the other 2 biopics that came out at the same time. So Ray came out a year before Walk the Line. 2 brilliant films. One's a black story, one's a white man's story, but set both in back in the day, 50s, 40s. Whatever, you know. Walk the Line was awesome as well.
I love to see like a success story within it, and that was one of those ones that, you know, they show the success and what it's like. Obviously they've got their dark parts as well, but it also shows go from nothing to become like really successful in something. It's really inspirational to see that kind of story get told.
Yeah, and I found with that one in particular, just the performances, the actual music in them performing on stage was the best I'd probably seen.
Yeah.
You know, that's the most memorable one out of all the ones I've seen, I think. That one I just always remember for some reason.
Yeah, yep.
Just Joaquin and Reese Witherspoon, you know, just going at it. And I was just like, geez, you know, it's so believable. James Mangold directed it, and I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. It's good to see, for some people, a lesser-known performer, you know, these songs are quite old now, and there's some people who I'm sure I'm aware of them, but I'm sure there's plenty of people who aren't aware of.
Oh, totally. Like, I think Johnny Cash at that point, you know, obviously it'd been such a long time since he was in pop culture or, you know, whatever. This brought him right back again.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people were listening to Johnny Cash again and buying his albums, and he became relevant again, you know, and all that sort of thing. So these films are really good for reviving and getting some more money.
And that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
You know, as we know, a film's not just a film. A film is one element of it, but there's a lot of other elements that go with it. And in many cases, it can be to get the music playing on the radios again, or getting albums sold, or...
Well, the other one I was thinking of as well was NWA.
Yeah.
Straight out of Compton.
Yeah, that was a big one when that one came out.
Yeah. Did you see it?
I did, yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, it was a good story. I mean, it was very dark, as expected. Clear message.
Eye-opening stuff.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
And especially around that time, what it would be like for, you know, a person of colour in that being in that sort of location at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, very tough.
Tough. Yeah, very tough subject and all round tough. But they handled it quite well,
Yeah.
I think.
It's good to see them trying to explain it in a way where we can understand it too.
Yeah.
Where they don't just assume that we all understand.
Where they're coming from or...
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of like Dr. Dre and Ice Cube when I was growing up, and and on the outside I was like, I don't know if I could believe these actors playing these rappers, you know, like because I'm so familiar with them, and I'm just like, this is going to be hard, even though the Ice Cube one is Ice Cube's real son in real life. So I was like, okay, I probably could believe him.
Yeah.
And as soon as the movie started, I'm looking at the guys playing Dre, and I just couldn't get over the fact I'm like trying to see him as Dr. Dre. But then within like 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, I was with it.
Yeah.
I was sold.
Yeah.
And Eazy-E, that guy played Eazy-E as well. All of them.
I guess this is, along with a lot of the ones we talk about, is they're usually just solid, well-rounded stories that we can understand. And I guess that's one thing with these kind of biopics, is that they can tell the story without having to worry so much about making things fit perfectly in certain acts, or making sure there's a huge climax at the end, or following an action cycle or whatever they need to make it follow. We can clearly just go along for the ride from beginning to end, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit in a perfect 3-act structure.
All right, next on the list, we're moving out of music-based biopics, and now we're going into...
I guess we can talk about sort of business-based one, Wolf of Wall Street.
Hey!
Which, when I watched that the first time, I didn't realise that it was based on a true story.
It's like that.
Because it is just so out there and it's
wacky
just
as.
crazy. Now, I reckon there would be a lot of changing of the story in that one.
Big time.
Being a bit loose on the characters and what's happened.
I'd like to hear like a comparison, but at the same time, I would kind of kill it. So I don't want to.
Because it is just a ridiculous story, really.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if all that stuff happened. I'm sure it would not surprise me one bit. And to be honest, I'd actually believe it to be life is always either worse or more of, or way 10 steps further than what they show in the films.
Yeah.
So like I'm watching it going, yeah, I'm sure that happened, but I'm sure it was a lot more, worse than what they're showing.
I really enjoyed it. There's a big ride there, so you're along for the ride, but enjoyable. It was
being a Marty Scorsese film.
Scorsese's
another partnership with Leo. It's having some winning combination.
That's right. Anything with Leo these days, he's just hitting it on the head.
Yeah.
Scorsese, he knows his stuff, clearly. Margot Robbie was in that. That was one of her first... That was her first one.
That brought her into big time.
Where I believe she slapped Leo in the audition.
Oh, really?
And that's how she got it. Something like that, anyway.
Yeah, right.
She
deserves it.
Yeah.
She's very good eye candy.
Yeah, very much so.
She's an Aussie.
And she does really well at the acting.
Yeah.
I saw her in I, Tonya as well.
Oh, that's great. I forgot. I knew nothing about it.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah, I knew nothing about it.
Well,
yeah.
I had no idea what it was about. I, Tonya, okay, right. And then at the end of it, I'm like, wow, so this actually happened?
Yeah,
crazy.
Right. Yeah, I knew it was, a biopic. But I didn't know it was going to be that crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Watching it, we still don't know what the truth is. Really, they showed Tonya as not having any knowledge of what happened, but we're never gonna know what actually happened, whether she knew or not.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to watch that one again, actually.
Yeah.
That one and Wolf of Wall Street. Because I've only seen that like one and a half times.
Yeah, I watched Wolf of Wall Street twice. I enjoyed it the second time more than the first time.
Yeah, I think I will.
Because you just pick up on these little quirky.
There's a lot of details in that film. Yeah.
So many.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, he's really smashing it out now too.
He's a great actor now.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good in comedies, but he just diversified and smashed it.
Yeah.
I prefer to see him in serious roles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's just, he's really good at, diversifying.
He's good at picking up a character and just playing with that character.
Yeah.
Where there's some actors that you just see them act the same in every film.
Yeah.
Like Brad Pitt or someone who's just pretty much the same in whatever they do. But, he seems to be able to pick a character and, dial in those little details just to
change it up and sort of mould it to a character or the character he's playing. Yeah. The Leonardo one that didn't work for me was J. Edgar. About J. Edgar Hoover, directed by Clint Eastwood.
I haven't seen that one. I watched the trailer and I was like, okay. So it didn't really get me going. But
I've watched the start probably like 3 times.
Yeah.
And I just go, no. And I love Clint Eastwood good movies like Gran Torino and all these good stuff.
Yeah. So how's the acting in it though? Was the character fine or was it just...
Oh, his makeup's funny.
Yeah?
Like the old makeup and fat makeup they have on him and that just doesn't quite look right.
Pushes you out of it, doesn't...
Yeah, it just doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one day I might watch it, but yeah, didn't grab me.
Okay.
It was a disappointing.
Yeah.
Because I was like, damn it, I want to like it, but it's just not doing it for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, put that one on the back burner. These next 2 ones though are brilliant films, and they were Oscar buzz and pretty big when they came out.
They came out, I'm pretty sure, the same year.
They did, yeah.
The same year, and they're sort of based around the same time as well.
Yeah, which I found quite strange.
And that would be Theory of Everything and...
Moneyball. No, I'm joking. Imitation Game. Star Wars, no.
Theory of Everything and Imitation Game, which are similar sort of topics with a very similar direction.
Yeah, I found that too. I found them almost approached in the same kind of way.
Yeah, they felt like they could have been made by the same people. I feel like they belong as a cohesive world, which they're not. They're separate films. They've both got there's a very similar theme running through it. Still both 2 very powerful films. Yeah,
and they are different enough as well.
Yeah.
Like, they are very different, but at the same time, they still have this very familiar feel to them.
So I guess if we break down Theory of Everything to start with,
Stephen Hawkins, which
I
was fascinated to know whatever I could, from this movie, and I was like, oh yeah.
Which I guess is a story about the disability that was.
He was unfortunate.
Yeah, where he starts off just like a normal person, and then reaches
with a bright future ahead.
Reaches early adulthood, and he's struck down with the illness, and they tell him that he's not going to live too much longer, and he surprises everyone. And so I guess there's a feel good story within that, even though it's a very tragic circumstance.
Yeah.
But it still has those human
very
elements
human, very human,
and it focuses on that. But there's also a huge love story through there, and
massive.
Towards the end, it's almost like a tragic love story. It's that story where people just grow different and they grow apart, and then it gets to a stage where you're 2 different people and it won't work anymore. And it's a very it's upsetting element to focus on, but it's still, as we said, very human. And there was a lot of small little themes like that was just throughout the film, as well as focusing on all the successes and what made him successful. There is still all those just small little details running throughout the film, which can still ground it.
I just found it so believable, and I know it was very romanticized, like these movies are. But Eddie Redmayne,
and I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, he's great.
He seems to just grab a character with both hands and just jump into it.
He's like the actor's actor, isn't he? Really, isn't he? Apart
Yeah.
from that movie, Jupiter's Ascending, but I forgive him for that because it's still very.
Yeah, he was finding his feet in Hollywood at that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to give you lots of money to do this big boss blockbuster. Yeah, okay.
But I don't want to take that away from him because Theory of Everything was brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, and he did win the Oscar for that, and he did deserve it. So, and Felicity Jones played the Jane Hawken.
Yeah.
So yeah, good casting in that. Good casting, good directing. Every aspect of that film's just class.
Yeah.
In that.
It's just spot on. Acting, amazing. Direction, amazing. Cinematography, amazing. Just the whole story arc, spot on.
And I was just so fascinated to learn how he got the disease and how that kind of happened. And that was the thing I was like, I just want to know that. Like, that was one thing I just didn't know. And I wanted to. And
It's that story about being able to move on from any trials and tribulations in life and build a better life for you, build a legacy, as you're saying, build something great with what you're handed in life.
Brilliant, man. And he only just passed away.
Yeah, at least in the story, their version of the story, he didn't really dwell on it too much. He sort of said, that's it, I've still going to move on with my life and focus on what makes me happy and passionate. And of course he had obstacles, as anyone would, but he managed to move past those. And
I think that's the true testament to not the film, but more to Stephen Hawking as a human being. And that is the most powerful part of these films, is that human element of these real life people, the circumstances and their journey is so powerful and interesting. And you just takes you out of your day-to-day normal life, or and just to see something like that is wow. It just shows you that you can be dealt the hardest card sometimes in life, and you can either overcome it or not. And these films are inspirations.
yeah,
My mum got an illness and she passed away due to it, very young. And when I see films like this, obviously I attach myself to these characters very easily, and it's heavy stuff, but it helps, to see these human stories. And it is very therapeutic, and it inspires you to carry on and to do what you want to do in life, because we've only got one shot in this life.
that's right. Yeah. I guess when you look at a biopic like this, you have to go into it not trying to judge it like a normal film. You need to know that they're trying to tell a real story, and real stories are always going to be different. But more than anything, you're going to watch it knowing that this stuff, for the most part, actually happened.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing to take away from anything.
Yeah, very powerful. Directing and the acting of that film was just so classy that, you see bad biopics like we've sort of talked about, and you see mediocre ones, and then you get these ones that are just all out class. They're winners all round.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm glad these films come around, because we need them.
Yeah.
As a human race, these
right.
are the movies we need more than the fucking Marvel movie. These are the real superheroes.
It's celebrating life, celebrating real humans, and celebrating the things that make us human.
Yeah.
Flaws
and all, warts and all.
everything.
Yeah. And that's the awesome thing about it, I could not give a fuck about Captain America dying or Iron Man dying. I don't care. All I care about really is real life stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
When you get to the bare bones of film, and you're actually watching a film and you're actually tearing up watching this film.
And this is one of the ones, very few films that I was crying afterwards. It's hard.
Yeah.
But Theory of Everything, just that scene where they were looking at each other and realised that they have to walk away from each other. That was a hard,
brutal,
hard thing to sort of
swallow.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh. But it's so good at the same time. It's like a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah. Moving on from Theory of Everything, Imitation Game, which focusing on like the technology point of view and the what they call like the beginnings of the computer.
Yeah.
Very interesting story, and it's not a story that most of us would know.
Not at all.
Which is really interesting, is that they decided to focus on a little-known person who's done little-known things, but it's affected us all in large ways.
You know, it's a World War II film, but not focusing on the war itself. So what's actually happening behind the war and what was going to win it for the Allied forces. You know, and sort of going into what the Nazis were doing at the time, which was their communications. So they would have coded communications, and the Allied forces needed to be able to break the code, decrypt it, to be able to understand and get a leg up on the Nazis. So yeah, that's basically what the film's about, and
it goes through the whole ups and downs of that process of developing that technology and what's involved with that. You know, on the outset, it sounds like a pretty basic, uneventful story, but there's a lot of little small details in the film that really stood out. The actor in it was
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep, that was sort of his first
major
film
step into Hollywood.
Where like Theory of Everything, Eddie Redmayne, that was kind of his, first one too. He done it. He did like Les Miserables and stuff like that too. But this is kind of like his first leading man.
And both English, which is always good because good English actors are the best.
Yeah.
But the guy, I mean, his life, he was a strange guy, just like The Theory of Everything with Stephen Hawking. He was another brilliant brain that wasn't so worried about being liked.
Yeah.
Not so worried about the day-to-day things. They had this bigger picture thing going on in their heads, and they were pursuing these things, their goals. He was an unliked person.
And especially towards the end there, they kind of focused on that element about trying to fit in with society.
Being a homosexual as well at that time.
And society wanted nothing to do with that.
And he got convicted because of it, and did not get recognised till after his death, which is that's tragic as hell. That's a stain on them. And I'm glad they included that in the film, and I'm glad
it's important to be said.
Yeah, totally. We're living in an age now where that can't happen.
Yeah,
that shouldn't never have happened. History will not repeat itself. But yeah, I mean, just go watch it. Highly recommended. Those are two films from the sort of the mid 2000s or late 2000s. Oh, late 2000s. 2014. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know where I am. Both those films, brilliant. 5 stars or 10 out of 10s for me.
Yeah.
Just enjoyment, class, and all that.
100%. Well, I guess that'll be it for today's podcast. Make sure that you keep an eye on our YouTube channel. We'll have more content coming soon. And I guess we'll talk to you later.
In the future. Till then, adios. Techno, me and my fucking dessert. That's going on the podcast.
Yeah. We'll just finish with me and my fucking dessert.